So, Nick, thank you ever so much for your time. I very much enjoyed the film. It's quite a dark and somber and gritty film, and that seems to be like a trademark of many of the your features. I'm just wondering what the appeal of these kind of films are, and the troubled characters that you play in so many of them.
Well, to be honest, like these are kind of the films that come my way. They tend to find me because to be honest, I mean, my life is pretty happy actually and pretty light these days. So it's kind of similar to I keep getting cast as bad guys too. This movie is an exception, but I villains and things like that, and I'm like, do I exude some sort of quality here that I'm not aware of? But the this to me is just another example of good fortune. Actually, it's come my way in my career since I was young. I mean, just um films that are scripts that are really interesting stories, really great stories, but also um a character that's so much fun to play, complex, just stuff you look for as an actor. So you know yeah, I was really thrilled to read the script and um to get this opportunity, to be honest. So
So you mentioned about sort of the good fortune that you have.
mhm.
There is a particularly intense fortune telling scene in this chapter of the film, in the chapter of the film that your character appears in. Over the years, we've spoken to quite a lot of actors who've kind of said about, who've spoken about psychics and mystics, fortune tellers, about and when they've gone to LA, especially. And I'm just wondering what your
Mm.
experience of that is in, maybe even now, but in the early part of your career, maybe when you started. And I know you've been acting for a very long time.
Like my first experience in going to LA and within the business, or
Yeah, the reason I mention it is that quite a few actors have mentioned that when they went to LA, they were approached about mystics, psychics, fortune tellers, saying, we can help you, what you need to look out for, the roles you need to go for, beware
yeah.
of, well, Harvey Weinstein seems to be the obvious one, but, that kind of
Mm.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, right. You know, I don't have a lot of experience in that world. My mother is very into like metaphysical stuff, especially now that she's retired. She's latched onto this. She gets into dream interpretation and things like that, and I when I look back, I personally, I mean, just in hindsight, I can see, that there were little signs that kind of illuminated my path. And at the time, I might not have seen them, but I don't know. I kind of believe in that stuff to some degree, but I think 90% of it seems to be kind of like snake oil. That's the way I view it. Never put too much stock into like astrology. I find it interesting, but I mean, some people seem to, you know, set their clocks to it these days, like that type of thing. And I've never been that person, but yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. The fortune uh that yeah, I don't know how else to answer your question. Uh, but sorry,
Okay, don't
I
worry.
don't know where I was going with it.
Well, so going back to the film again, you've
Mhm.
got a couple of scenes in this, love scenes, which are never easy to film for under any circumstances. I'm just wondering with the recent trend and the introduction of intimacy coordinators, whether that has made those kind of scenes easier now.
Intimacy, yeah. I mean, well, luckily for in this movie, we had a pretty small crew, and so there weren't a lot of people watching. That makes it easier, you know. Yeah, I mean, love scenes are they tend to be awkward, you know. To be honest, you know, even you kind of see who's whatever cast, there's a beautiful person cast opposite. You're like, oh, this is gonna be fun. It's never what you. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. It's nerve wracking. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Um, and especially, 9 times out of 10, they're married or have or they're in a significant relationship, and I don't know why it always seems to be that their significant other is visiting town. They're in town. They're not on set, but they're at the hotel or whatever, and you're just like, this is weird. This is very weird. Um, but yeah, it typically, movie sets, they're very respectful, and they close the set off, and so they're not selling concessions,
Yeah.
people aren't eating popcorn watching, so that makes it easier.
So I've got to ask you, obviously, about yourself and Robert Patrick. Now, I think you might know where this is going. Having appeared in those films, the Terminator franchise, was there
Mm-hmm.
ever a time where kind of the scene that you do share together where you've kind of discussed your experiences on that, and what was the topic that comes up most frequently with that?
We didn't actually talk about Terminator too much, much to the disappointment, I'm sure, of all the Terminator buffs out there, but I didn't unfortunately get to spend a ton of time with him in while filming. If you've seen the movie, you know that we don't have a lot to do together in the film.
Mm.
I got to show up a week early, I guess, and watch um, them finishing up, him and Scott's storyline. So I got to see him act a lot, which was a pleasure, which was really, really cool for me just to do that. But we hung out a bit, off camera, and he's a lot of fun to work with. He's a character.
Yeah.
Have you interviewed him for this?
No, I haven't. No, no.
Okay. If you get to, yeah, I mean, you'll see he's kind of a character. He's just he's a funny guy, and we had a lot of fun. But we didn't really talk about Terminator. But I would hope I would get to work with him again at some point and cross paths with him, and I would have a little more to do in the film with him, because I've always looked up to him as an actor. Starting with that movie back in the day. I mean, I saw Terminator 2, 10 times when I was a kid. I mean, it was one of my favorites, and I just thought he just killed it in that movie. I mean, it just one of the scariest people I'd ever seen, and then he kind of turns out to be the same in this movie in a very different way. So
Yeah. So finally, then, Nick, we ask all actors who are good enough to chat to us. You've got quite an extensive career because you started very young when you started acting. But I'm just wondering, with all the roles that you've taken, is there any film that you look back on in retrospect that you didn't take and you think, I should have taken that role?
Well, I did. So yes and no. There was a movie that I passed on called Crash that won the Oscar. You know,
Yeah.
it won Best Picture. And that one I was like, I questioned that decision. Now I will say that I didn't like the script, and I actually didn't like the film. Even when it was done, I was like, I stand by my. I thought it was a really overrated film. I didn't understand why it won the Oscar, but I questioned my decision as you know, from a career standpoint. I was like, yeah, maybe I should have, you know, reread that a little bit or just reconsidered. Uh, but I would say that's the biggest one, you know. Other than that, yeah, I can't think of any others. So
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for your time, Nick. I very
yeah,
much enjoyed the
thanks.
film. It's pretty. It gets pretty grim, doesn't it?
It does. It's a wild ride, you know, dark, but and slow burn. But I think it's a payoff for the audience if they can
Yeah.
stick with it, you know. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nick. Thank you
Thanks
very
very
much.
much. Yeah. Have a good day.